Okay, so this one's just because I've gotten Netflix a few weeks ago, and they have at the moment they have 18 different Doctor Who serials, classic. A few I've done before, and we're going to talk about one in particular today, the Leisure Hive, which is a very important one in certain aspects. This was the first story of the last season for Tom Baker. This was also the first season. This was, the first season and story. Subsequently, where producer John Nathan Turner came in. Now, the role of producer I don't bring up much. Basically, back then, the job of a showrunner, someone who runs the series today, what Stephen Moffat does, where he's in charge of the general story direction and other decisions that have to be made. He has half of that job. He makes a lot of the decisions. The actual, story work, working with the writers and all that, that's still done by a script editor. And at this point, it was a man named Christopher H. Bidmead. And so this was a big deal. Basically, a lot of the acting choices and location choices and all that, a lot of the heavy work that doesn't involve a pen to paper or typewriter or whatever. That was Turner's job, and he would be the last producer to work on the show. He worked from here all the way up to Sylvester McCoy's era, the final story, Survival. He's a man who's a frequent punching bag to whenever you bring up the show, because he did not make the greatest decisions. He made pretty good decisions. I mean, the man cast, after Tom Baker, the man cast all the subsequent actors who would, go on to play the Doctor in the classic series. He brought in good writers here and there. He definitely knew how to promote the show. The show was always in the paper, some way, shape, or form. And he also knew how to spread a penny, which shows a lot throughout this series. At least this season in particular. At least a lot of the stuff I've seen, it looks like there's more money on screen than there actually is. It doesn't look as cheap as some. Hell, look, the story right before this, not Shada, Horns and Nymon, is, a classic example of just how cheap sets can look, whereas this is pretty good. In fact, the big positive I have to give about the Leisure Hive in general is its production values look really nice. They put a lot of work into the sets, and there's a good amount of effects work here. There's a particular scene where you see the camera kind of panning around, and you see the TARDIS appear in frame, which was a very kind of new, inventive thing at the time. But once, that happens, the story starts. Now, I had no opinion on this. I had no idea of what was this like. I didn't know if it was a hated one. I didn't know it was a loved one. I didn't know anything about it. So I just watched it, and my first initial thought was, wow, this thing's not really going anywhere. It's paced really erratic. I mean, when we first see the Doctor and Romana, they're on a beach, just, the Doctor sitting in a chair, wearing his new, kind of stupid-looking burgundy costume. Well, it's not that it looks bad, I just hate the fact that it's, again, just all red. I think it just doesn't look that cool compared to other costumes. And then Romana, this scene perplexes me. The only reason it exists is because they have fully realized a very long time ago that as much as I love K9 in this series tended to solve all the problems. Oh, well, no, we're trapped. K9, use your laser on the bad guys. Pew, pew, pew. Yeah, he was essentially, the guy with the gun that would just zap things and boom, end of problem. So they'd have to figure... So basically, it became an even more repetitive game of, how can we get rid of K9? And the way they got rid of him is the most... Okay, sorry, but it it's goofy on the face of it, and it makes Romana look dumb as hell. And it makes her look unbelievably stupid. Okay, so Romana and K9 are just strolling across the beach because all of a sudden, no, not all of a sudden. Okay, so basically, Romana holding a beach ball says, "Go fetch K9," and throws it into the water. Yeah, her first dumbass moment was doing that. So then K9, being an idiot, programmed to be an idiot, goes into the water. Which, first off, okay, you think the normal thing of, oh, he'll short circuit or something. No, he blows the hell up. Like, as soon as he touches that water, boom. Like, how? Why? Okay. I mean, I'm gonna throw a TV remote in the water and see if it becomes a small hand grenade. Why did that happen? How did that happen? Why? Yeah, I'm in full confusion mode there. And then right after, right before he hits it and blows up, she's like, "K9!" Like, you're the idiot who put him in the situation. Whatever, you dumbass. That was the dumbest sequence I've seen in a long time. So then, Romana's like, "I want to go, somewhere fun, because this place is boring." And they're still on the run from the Black Guardian. The doctor, even though the doctor turned off the randomizer, which he set up so Black Guardian couldn't find them easy. Again, this point really isn't brought back up until, the Black Guardian trilogy, which some guy on the internet's covering right now, and I hear he's doing an amazing job. So they decide to go to this planet that's home of the, title Leisure Hive. And then we meet these people who have some hair that just make Marge Simpson look dignified. At least in terms of color. Size, maybe not, but color. And then it's very much a lot of people talking, not a lot of exciting things happen. That's part one and part two. The first half's really kind of slow. I mean, important stuff's being said, but it's not exciting. It's just, oh yes, we have this rejuvenator. It could possibly rejuvenate human beings. Oh God, it turned the doctor into an old-looking man. Which, by the way, no offense to Tom Baker, you in old makeup doesn't look as bad as you looking naturally old. But then again, that's because you're skinny, and plus, if this was Christmas still, I'd Photoshop a crappy hat on you. But other than that, yeah. So then after that, stuff picks up. We learn of the whole evil plan. We find out that there's this alien that shows up in the beginning. We think look like the average silly-looking monster of the story. Turns out he's a good guy. I did like the deception of that. And then it just kind of moves on to, this one single madman who wants to use this machine to make an army, rejuvenate, basically bring back his race. Take over the galaxy. Yeah, this is a very not that exciting story. It was fun to look at, and it had pretty good effects on it. A lot of split screenings because there's a lot of duplicates of stuff, but I really liked it. I liked that part of it. Now, another big thing here is, the Doctor and Romana aren't in a good chunk of it. Like, it's not like they appear in just 5 minutes or something, but it feels like they're not in a lot of it. If you really kind of divvy the screen time between, the two leads and then the guest actors have a lot more. And that's because they're trying to establish this whole background. There's a war with these other people. This resort that they run is running out of money and they may have to sell it. They're trying to make, world here. And I appreciate that. I appreciate world building. Give you a sense of, there was something here, previous stuff has happened here, and we're just, we're in the middle of a chapter, but not completely lost in the book, if you get my meaning. But the show is called Doctor Who, and it is a little disappointing to see Doctor Who kind of sidelined. That's a bit heartbreaking. Not heartbreaking, just kind of disappointing. I will say this. This wasn't a terrible, start to a producer's run. And not the worst start. Like, again, it's not awful. It's just, it's not going to be remembered. It's not, you can tell it's not remembered as a classic. This is never a recommended one or a stay away from one either. It's kind of like all the way back when I covered Black Orchid. It's very much in that vein of it served its purpose well. Another thing that I noticed was the episodes were like 20 minutes. Like, they were all 5 minutes shorter, and they really pad out the cliffhanger, like the reprisal of the cliffhanger. Okay, obviously, part 1 would go cliffhanger, and then we'd have to go through maybe 3 to 5 minutes of watching of the previous episode before we got onto the new one, and that's usually a sign that they're padding a story out. But plus the fact that all these are a little over 20 minutes each still is a little distracting. It's a little distracting. It kind of proves that they just didn't have time, or they didn't have much put in the story. I'm glad they didn't just pad it out more, but I found that kind of distracting. So because this is currently on Netflix, if I somehow made you curious about this, which, to be fair, I think I sounded more negative on it than I planned on, you might want to give it a look if you have Netflix. The DVD is fairly cheap. It's one of the really early releases, one of the really early cheap releases. And I hear the bonus features on it are actually really good, very informative, but here on its own, I can't recommend it, but I could definitely say it's watchable.